Hello guys, in this particular tutorial we will talk about loops. Now what do you mean by a loop? To repeatedly execute a piece of code when a given condition holds true, then we are going to go ahead and use a loop. So as the name indicates, loop is something that you keep doing again and again and again until the condition is remains true till the time you are going to go ahead and loop through it, and once the condition does not hold true anymore, then what you do, you exit out of that loop. So it's just like you do exercise every day, so you do it every day, so it's a loop. So there are three different kinds of loops that are available in case of Apex. We have a do while loop, we have a for loop, and we have while loop. So you have do while, then you have a while, and then you have a for loop. And we're going to go through each of these loops in our upcoming tutorial. We will start with the for loop. So for loop is also a kind of a loop which basically executes a block of statements repeatedly until a particular condition returns false. So how the loop is written, the syntax for the for loop, you will have the for keyword here. So you're going to have a for keyword, and this is the for keyword. Then you're going to use these circular braces, and then you're going to have the for is divided into three parts. One will be initialization, another one there will be a condition, and then it will be increment or decrement. So, and these are the semicolons that you have to do. So what is initialization? Initialization means you are going to initialize a particular variable. Condition means, okay, if let's say, what is the condition? If that condition is true, let's say 4 is less than 5, this is a condition. And you know that this is a true condition. So what will happen is, if this condition returns true, then these block of statements will run. So whatever is inside them will run it, and once it runs, then it will go ahead and increment it or decrement it as we have written down. So this is the syntax of the program. So you have an initialization part, then you have a condition, then you have an increment or decrement, and then the piece of code that you wanted to go ahead and repeat again and again. And the piece of code will get repeated until the condition remains, till the point the condition is true. And once the condition becomes false, then it will go ahead and come out of the loop. So that is what the loop is. I repeat here, loop is something whenever you wanted to repeat something till a particular condition hold true, then you're going to go ahead and use a loop. Loop is divided, or loop is of three types in Apex. One is a for loop, then you have a while loop, and then you have a do while loop. And we're going to go ahead and talk about each of these loops. We have just started with the for loop. Whenever you write a for loop, you will use the keyword for, and then there will be circular braces. And inside of the circular braces, you will have three parts. One will be the initialization part, where we are going to initialize something. Means you're going to provide a default value or initialize the value. And then after that, you're going to have a condition that you wanted to check. And then there will be a semicolon. So there is a semicolon before the condition and also a semicolon after the condition part. And then either you want to increment, means increase the value, or decrease it. And then you will have curly braces. And inside of those curly braces, you're going to go ahead and write your statements. So this is how a for loop is written. As I told you, there are three parts. One is the initialization. The second one is the condition. And then you have the increment and the decrement. Now, what does the initialization expression does? This will only execute once. Remember this. This will only execute once during the beginning of the loop. So whenever you start the loop, this particular expression will only execute once. So I'll repeat, this is how the expression looks like. You have for loop, you have the initialization part, then you have a condition part, and then you have an increment or the decrement part, right? Either you increase it or decrease it, and then you have curly braces, and inside of the curly braces, you're going to write your stuff. So the initialization part will only execute one time during the beginning of the loop. So it will only execute once when you start the loop. Now condition. Condition will be a Boolean expression, means that condition is either going to return you a true or a false. So condition will get evaluated each time. So when every time the condition will get evaluated, and each time the loop iterates. So every time the loop goes through, the condition will get evaluated. Not like initialization expression, which only executes once. Condition will execute every time the loop iterates. Loop executes the block of statement repeatedly until this condition returns false. So as long as the condition is true, whatever you have written inside the curly braces, those statements will get executed for the timing till the condition remains true. Once the condition remains false, it'll go ahead and exit out from the loop. Then you have the increment and the decrement part. This also is very similar to condition because it will also execute every time for each iteration of the loop. So remember guys, this will only run once during the beginning of the loop. This particular condition expression will evaluate it each time the loop iterates, and increment and decrement also will evaluate each time or each iteration of the loop. So now let's go ahead and do an example of the for loop. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to show you how the for loop works. So I'm in my developer console. So as I told you, let's say I wanted to display the value 1 10 times. Okay, I wanted to display something like this: 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, etc. I wanted to display the number 1 10 times. There are two ways of doing it. Okay, one is the right way and one other one is the wrong way. If I want to display number 10 or number 1, what will I do? I'll just write a debug statement and I'll write it 10 times. I'll write it 10 times. And as you can see, this is not a good way of writing it, because what you're doing is you're kind of repeating the same line again and again. And let's say if I say, okay, write it 15 times, what you're going to do is you're going to come back and copy this 5 more times here. And when you execute the program, what are going to happen is it's going to go ahead and display number 1 15 times. If you go to the debug part, you will see it only displays 1 1 1 1 1 15 13 times or 14 times. Okay, but that's not the right way of doing it. Or let's say if I say, hey, can you go ahead and display my name 15 times? So what you're going to do is you're going to say system.debug, and then you're going to go ahead and say my tutorial rack, and then I said, okay, go ahead and type it 15 times. So what will happen is you're going to go ahead and copy this line for 15 times. And this is not the right way, because if the demand increases, if say you have to write it 100 times, you're wasting your time here, right? You're typing the same thing, and this is called redundancy. You're duplicating, which is not a good idea. So if I go ahead and execute, it is going to go ahead and display my tutorial act particularly 11 times, because what I did is I have written those system.debug statements 11 times. Now you can see that this is not a good way of writing things. So now whenever you have to repeat something again and again, then what you're going to do is you will talk about loops whenever you have to repeat something. So in our previous example, we were repeating the word my tutorial rack 15 times, right? And what we were doing is we wrote down the debug statements 15 times, which is not a good practice. So how we will achieve this using a for loop? We will say, the first thing we're going to say is we're going to say for, and then you're going to have these circular braces, and then we're going to use the initialization part. Remember, there are three parts. One is the initialization, the second one we have is the condition, and the third one we have is the increment and the decrement part. And then after that we have a curly braces, and then we are going to have the code, whatever you want to repeat. So here I wanted to repeat the my tutorial rack debug statement 15 times. So that is the code that I want to repeat. So what we're going to do here is we will say for initialization integer I is equals to, let's say, 1. Okay, so I have initialized my variable I with the value of 1. That means I got a value of 1. And this is the initialization part, so it will only execute once at the beginning of the loop. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my condition. Let's say the condition is as long as it is less than or equals to 15. So this is my condition. So, and after the condition, I have a semicolon. So whenever you have to use a semicolon before the condition part as well as after the condition part. And then you're going to have an increment. Let's say I is equals to I plus 1. Every time the loop iterates, each time the value of I will get increment by 1. Now I will use the curly braces, and then the piece of code that I want to repeat is system.of_debug, and I'll say my tutorial rack. So this is the piece of code that I want to repeat. So see, instead of writing the my tutorial rack 15 times or whatever the time, what we did is we achieved the same thing through the for loop. So let me go ahead and explain you how does this thing work. So first time we initialize this I with 1. So I has a value of 1. This is the initialization part, and now this particular part only runs once. So the part has been done. Then the condition will get checked. Is I less than equals to 15? What does that mean? Is 1 is less than equals to 15? Yes, that is correct. 1 is less than equals to 15. So the condition is true. Now what will happen is, if the condition is true, it will come inside the loop and it will perform whatever lines you have written in these curly braces. Since I have only one line, it will go ahead and execute that line and it will print my tutorial rack on the screen. Then it will go through this next part, which is I is equals to I plus 1. So the new value of I became is I is equals to I, which was 1 plus 1. So the new value is 2 now. So no more initialization part. There is no initialization part. Then again, the condition will be checked. The condition is I less than equals to 15. Now what is the new value of I? The new value of I is 2. So is 2 less than equals to 15? Yes. 2 is less than equals to 15. So the condition met again, and then what will happen is it will go ahead and come inside the loop and it will go ahead and print my tutorial rack. So on the screen I will see my tutorial rack again. Then this part will run again. I is equals to I plus 1. So what was the old value for I? The old value for I was 2 plus 1. What will be the new value now? 3. So now the new value of I is 3. Again, the condition will run. Condition will be true because 3 is less than equals to 15. That is exactly right. And then since the condition is true, it will go ahead and display my tutorial rack here. And then what will happen is I is equals to I plus 1. So what will be the new value of I now? I will become 4 because 3 plus 1, the old value of I was 3. 3 plus 1, now the new value of I became 4. So let's say it went ahead till the point the value became 15. So what will happen then? Now the value of I is 15. So 15 is equals to 15. Yes, because your condition is less than equals to. Either it can be less than or either it can be equal to. So in this case, 15 is equals to 15. So it's the same thing. So the condition still remains true. Then it will go ahead and print my tutorial rack. It will come ahead and go ahead and execute this line and it will go ahead and print my tutorial rack again. But then what will happen is this particular part will run again and I will become 15 plus 1, which is equals to 16. So the new value of I is 16. Again, the condition will be checked. Is 16 less than or equals to 15? No, this is not the right way because 16 is greater than 15. So then the loop has finished, will exit out, not execute, will exit out. And what will happen is it will stop right here. So what did it did? It printed my tutorial rack till 15 times. It repeated my tutorial rack. Instead of writing this debug statement 15 times, this is the better way by using the for loop. Using the for loop, what we have done is we have initialized our I with 1. The initial value is 1. You can start with 0 or whatever. Initial value is 1. Then you said as long as value of I is less than equals to 15, go ahead and repeat this. Okay, and once the value of I became more than 15, then that's it. I do not want to execute the loop after that. So now what will happen is if you go ahead and execute this program, let's go ahead and click on the execute button here. What you will see? You will see the my tutorial rack getting displayed 15 times. So now if I go ahead and execute, click on the debug button here. See, you can see that it got executed my tutorial rack 15 times. It got executed. If you can even count how many times the line is. So this is about 15 times the program got executed.